Hello. Today I'm going to talk about introversion and the apolitical. So let me explain that title. Well, the thing is, I actually have a deep interest in politics to start off with. So that's British, American, and French politics, especially. And I'll just go through all those briefly. British politics, well, I've always voted for the Conservative Party, so I have a 100% record of Conservative voting, although I am a centrist. It's just that I've found that the Conservative Party often reflects my own values and point of view more than Labour. Neither is a perfect fit, but I mean, the Conservatives are more on that wavelength. But whether I would have voted for Blair in '97 had I been of voting age, I might well have voted for Blair and New Labour when it was at its most popular height. So I'm not ruling out Labour, but so I've got an interest in British politics. Now, American politics I'm very interested in. I watch Tucker Carlson every night, which is a Fox News. He's a Fox News anchor, and it's often opinion pieces rather than hard news. But it's excellent, and he does some very good interviews. And again, I'm not right wing, but I watch Fox News for more entertainment than instruction, I'd say. But it's certainly very interesting to get a right wing perspective, given that the BBC and Newsnight, which is my other main news um, news program, um, that's quite well metropolitan liberal, so it tacks a bit to the left, but so it's a good balance. So that's um, in terms of American politics at the moment, I'd say Biden and Trump are both quite bad candidates. Um, there's no one that really leaps out as an obvious choice for president, but um, we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, Biden's ahead in the polls, but um, whether he'd be a good president at such an old age is questionable. And then there's French politics. I'm trying to read French at the moment, and I've subscribed to L'Express, which is a sort of a French magazine, weekly magazine publication with news, current affairs, but also quite a philosophical edge. Um, Goes into lots of details about ideas and philosophy and literature and stuff like that. So it's an excellent publication, and I try and read that every week. I've subscribed to it anyway. So my subscriptions are The Times, The Wall Street Journal, and L'Express, which I think gives a good balance. But having said all that, as an introvert, I see myself as an observer, not as an actor. So, despite my deep interest in politics, I'm more of an apolitical character, really. Now, let's go into that a bit. Um, the the point is that I'm not in any position to influence politics. Not in any position of influence. Not even got a proper career or anything like that. And so and I'm an introvert. I'm quite a deep introvert, and I'm much, despite, as I say, despite following politics, I've got a much deeper interest in the arts and in spirituality, and so I'm much happier reading literature and listening to good music and that kind of thing, and due to my inherent introversion and especially spirituality, I've got more of an attitude of fleeing the world and being in the world, not of it, and that sort of, well, quite a cliche, but it contains a deep truth that we should really try to avoid the world as much as possible. And for me, that means just having a handful of close friendships and my immediate family, and beyond that, not having much involvement in the world. And for me, that's the ideal, because I can observe from afar and I can be a commentator. I can write things, be a writer, but not have a hand in political decisions. And a vote obviously doesn't count for much. You may say enfranchisement is very important, and it is for groups, but not for individuals, because one vote is effectively meaningless in the millions of votes that are cast. So I wouldn't say enfranchisement involves us particularly in politics on an individual level, only on a social group level. So there's that. And I think it's important to have this attitude to flee the world, because I think there's a temptation to materialism and consumerism, and to get too deep into politics. I mean, not to take away from political leaders and MPs and congressmen and senators, but I think that's a very perilous path to take in life, because it's open to a lot of corruption and temptations to worldly power and materialism especially, and I don't think it's a good vocation particularly. I think it's a very, very dangerous vocation to have, and you can't constantly in the public eye as well, which mustn't be good. And there's a temptation to double speak and political speak, and you don't really stand for the truth. As a private individual, you can stand for the truth and you can seek the truth, but as a politician, it's more about appearances and superficiality, and I think that affects the soul as well. So I'd hate to be deeply involved in politics, but also the goals of humanity are so much greater than politics. And what I mean by that is, when you consider the ultimate goals of civilization, it's artistic, scientific, spiritual, and all these transcend far above politics. And although politics can be interesting, we can follow it on a passive level. The goals of humanity are so much higher than that. Politics is often for the short term. It loses sight of long-term goals, and really, being as I am a great follower of the arts and of religion, I find that to speak to me on a far deeper level than politics ever could. And I don't believe that politics is the ultimate solution in any way. It's not the ultimate solution to any problem, really. Politics is just a very superficial art. It's only about the immediate concerns of the population, and it doesn't look to the long term, really, or if it does, only in a deeply flawed way. So, and the thing is, introversion, which is the key principle here, helps me to be a thinker and ultimately an aspiring intellectual. I won't say by any stretch of the imagination I am an intellectual. I don't have any academic post. I had a good education, but I haven't written much, and what I have written is brief. So I'm not in any way formally of intellectual status, but I am aspiring to that level, and I like to think and reflect on things, and I'm increasingly writing more on things and presenting my ideas in different formats. And introversion helps me to do that by focusing inwardly and not dissipating my energies in too much mingling with society. So, I mean, as I say, I like to have a handful of close friends and immediate family, and not much beyond that, and that suits me. And I think introversion is a great tool for being able to think and reflect and do that in a passive and objective manner and not become too involved in the world. So, the title of this was Introversion and the Apolitical. So, ultimately, I am an apolitical person because I don't get involved in the world. Um, my views are generally private. I've called myself a centrist, but in a way, a centrist is a bit like sitting on the fence. So I've not got defined committed views really. My views are more to do what's sensible and common sense in politics, but I really am due to my introversion. I really am to a certain extent apolitical. So that's my thoughts on that, and I hope you found that interesting.